Hey, welcome everybody. I'm Charles E. Smith Jr. and this is an Inside Sports production. It is time for NFL Championship Weekend. We finally got we're down to our final four, the teams that have won, the teams that have gotten the chance to soldier on and decide who is going to represent in Super Bowl 46. We are down to, of course, the Baltimore Ravens, the New England Patriots, the New York Giants, and the San Francisco 49ers. Now let's first recap the games of this past week here on Inside Sports. Let's go ahead and start with the San Francisco 49ers. The Niners, they get the impressive 36-32 win over the New Orleans Saints. The Niners forced 5 turnovers. They did have a 17-point lead, which they were unable to hold. But in the end, it was the heroics of Vernon Davis as the San Francisco 49ers win in the Bay, and they get to stay in the Bay there for the NFC Championship game this weekend against the New York Giants. And speaking of those Giants, the New York Giants pulling what many would consider the biggest upset of the week, and that is a 37-20 victory over the Green Bay Packers. There you see head coach Tom Coughlin shaking hands with Mike McCarthy. Two great warriors, two great battlers, and of course the Green Bay Packers, they've always got their contingent of fans. I guess this is the new thing, Packer fans, the ladies going in bikinis. There's another shot of some Packer fans in bikinis. But one of the sidebars was with this 37-20 victory, there was some really questionable stuff that went on, and it was about this man, Mr. Bill Levy, the head official in that game. Now, if I just refresh your memories a moment, many of you may remember back to Super Bowl 40, where there were some questionable calls. There's Mike Holmgren when he was coaching the Seahawks and following a line judge saying, hey, what the heck is going on out there? Here's a referee under the hood, and that is, of course, Bill Levy, who back in 2006 made a number of questionable calls in that Super Bowl. In fact, it led him to finally, in August of 2010, he apologized to the Seattle Seahawks for the blown calls in that Super Bowl. But then what happens is he goes out to Green Bay, and this same weekend, he does the exact same thing again. And we'll just put it up here for you. This is a fumble call that was not called a fumble on the field. He reviews it. Even from this picture, you can clearly see Greg Jennings going down, the ball coming out, the knee not on the ground, the elbow not on the ground, yet he does not reverse this call. He does not call it a fumble, even after going under the hood like he did in Super Bowl 40, and he says it's inconclusive. The audience saw it. The announcer saw it. Everyone knew that was a fumble, and Levy comes back and says he's just down by contact. I don't know where he gets this stuff from. But then later on, the Giants, a horrible spot that they got on a third down, run up the middle, and that ball was spotted at least a half yard shy. Should have been a first down. And then there was a phantom roughing the passer call in the fourth quarter, which kept another Green Bay drive alive. So the final score being the New York Giants 37, Green Bay 20. Green Bay can attribute 14 of those points directly to Bill Levy. Now, I don't know what goes on with him in these big games, and it's one thing for an official to make mistakes, but if you're going to make mistakes, you got to make them both ways. That shows that you're having a bad day. When you're just favoring one team, like all the calls that the Steelers got, it was almost embarrassing in Super Bowl 40, and the same thing in this game on Sunday. But fortunately, Green Bay did not win the game, and I don't say that anything against Packer fans, but that game was not cleanly officiated, and the Giants won anyway, so all's well that ends well. But Mr. Levy, I don't know what the deal is, but you really need to clean that up. You're paid good money. These are big games. There are careers on the line. Big money is paid. There's guys filling the stadiums. It's national TV. You can't get nervous in big games and start making calls like this, assuming that these are honest mistakes. If this is some Tim Donaghy stuff, you know what? You deal with your own personal demons, but this stuff has to be taken care of. The worst part is the NFL coming out and saying that the game was cleanly officiated. That's what they said about Super Bowl 40. And then as I was watching NFL Network, actually Charles Davis said he liked the way that the officials just let everything play out. Come on, Davis, you played. You saw that game. You know that wasn't clean. I know you're working for NFL Network, but at a certain point, you got to bring it to the fans real. Tell them what they need to know. The other thing that, remember all these fans out there, the NFL's prime directive. It's not about making sure you understand the game. It's not about making the games cleanly officiated. The NFL's main thing is they want you to keep watching their games. That's it. They will do and say anything to get you to keep watching the games, keep the ratings up. That's what they're really all about. That's why things come down the pike from the NFL. Some things you might want to take with a grain of salt, but you know what? It's done. It's over. Justice was served. The Giants won the game. They deserved to win that game. They played better. The end. I will not belabor the point any further. Let's get on to the New England Patriots. The Patriots, what can you say? They beat the Denver Broncos and Tim Tebow 45-10. They went out there, they handled business. They did not take him too lightly like the Steelers did the week before. They went out there, got it done, 45-10. Brady with 6 touchdown passes. Enough said about that. The Baltimore Ravens against the Houston Texans. The Ravens go out, they force 4 turnovers. They win the turnover battle 4-0. Now, this was a typical Ravens victory, though, as Terrell Suggs said, there's the right way, the wrong way, and then there's the Ravens way. And the Ravens did get it done their way, obviously. In this game, somehow they won the game, but outgained 315 to 227 in total yardage, yet they still win the game. They had a 17-point lead. They only scored 3 points in the last 46 minutes of the game. So I don't know if this bodes well for them as the game goes on, but once again, the Ravens were able to get it done because of this man here, Mr. Ray Lewis, still getting it done after all these years. Ed Reed had a couple of picks. Also, the defense played well, and the defense delivered this. It's about time for Mr. Flacco to start really coming to the forefront and getting it done himself. So as we take a look at Conference Championship Sunday, we're going to break down these games in just a moment. The Ravens are going to have the early game. They will be at New England. New England is, at this point, as we do the show, a 7.5-point favorite in the game. That'll be at 3 o'clock Eastern Time, 12 Pacific for those of us out here on the West Coast. And then the Giants are going to be in the Bay Area. The Niners are 2.5-point favorite right now. Of course, you'll remember way back when, it seems like long ago, but yet it seems like only yesterday, 2003, in January, up in the Bay Area. And it was the Giants losing 39-38. There's that frantic last play. The Giants attempting a field goal. They botched the snap. A pass is attempted, and there was a non-call on what should have been easy pass interference. They didn't call it. But still, when I talk to Giants fans about that game, and what they say is, it doesn't matter what the call was on that last play. There was no way that game should have even been that close. So the Giants not getting any love for their fans from that because of in that loss. But let's go ahead and break down the games for this weekend. Let's take them in sequence here. The very first game, the Baltimore Ravens at New England. There you see the regular season records, the games they won last week. And here's the troubling thing, though. We look at the Ravens' numbers. There you see Joe Flacco, a very pedestrian 14 of 27, 176 yards, 2 TDs, but the defense forces 4 turnovers. Conversely, you've got Tom Brady, 26 of 34, 363 yards, a record 6 TDs, and throwing 1 pick in the process. So again, it's going to come down to one more time. You got Brady and Welker. You got those guys against this guy and his defense. Ray Lewis, Haloti Ngata, Ed Reed, Terrell Suggs, all those boys, they always get it done. But my question here is with Joe Flacco, is he going to have another one of these moments? There's Flacco walking off the field after a loss. This was not this past weekend, obviously, but we're seeing this too much from Joe Flacco in big games, and that is he's just not, to me, he doesn't really come to play in big games the same problem as one Matt Ryan has in Atlanta. And that's the thing, great regular seasons, but when it comes down to it, Are they getting it done when they need to get it done? If we take a critical look at Baltimore's season, they were 12-4, which is a pretty good record. 12-4 is great, but they're 4 losses. They lose to Jacksonville. They lose to Tennessee. And when they lost to Tennessee, it wasn't because Chris Johnson ran wild on them. Chris Johnson had 29 carries for 53 yards. They lose to Seattle. They lose to San Diego. So they lose. The 4 games they lose are to non-playoff teams. And when they lost to Tennessee and when they lost to Seattle, they had just beaten Pittsburgh. They beat Pittsburgh 35-7. Then they lay an egg against Tennessee. They beat Pittsburgh 23-20. Then they lay an egg against Seattle. So they're coming off a big win again, and I'm really not convinced that Joe Flacco can really get this thing done. Now, we know about Tom Brady. We know about the Super Bowls. We know about Spygate, too, which I've been vocal about before. We will see, as far as should they have actually had those wins, something the NFL, I think, maybe doesn't want to talk about too much. But when I look at this matchup, I like you got to think New England, even as poorly as their defense can play sometimes, but still, in a big game like this, I like New England to really get this thing done here. Baltimore, it was a typical game for them. They got outgained last week, but somehow managed to win the game. Needed 4 turnovers, and still they barely won that game. They won the game by 7 points. They only scored 3 points in the last 46 minutes of that game. So that's not going to bode well for them. If they're thinking that they're going to do that type of a thing against New England, it's not going to work out. In New England, I doubt if they're going to put up 4 turnovers so that the defense can capitalize on them like that. So in this game, I got to go with the New England Patriots. I like the New England Patriots to win this game, take out Baltimore, and they will be in Super Bowl 46. So let's go ahead over to the NFC. The NFC, the New York Giants. There you see the regular season records, 9-7 in the regular season versus 13-3. They're going to be up in the Bay Area. Giants took out the Packers last week. The Niners took out the Saints. And look at the QB comparisons there. Eli Manning with a great day. Alex Smith with a great day as well. Alex Smith also had a rushing TD, as we'll show you right here. He took a bootleg down the sideline, scored an important TD for them against the New Orleans Saints. Now there again, we look at the turnover battle. The defense forced 5 turnovers in their win against the Saints, and with the Giants, they never trailed in that game against the Green Bay Packers. So the Giants, the Niners, yes, they did play once again. They had played in Week 10, and that game was in the Bay Area also, and the Giants won that game 27-20. However, that was a different Giants team than the team that is playing right now. That was a Giants team that was in the midst of losing 4 straight. They lost 5 of 6. They were in disarray, but now they have righted that ship, and it comes down to what can Alex Smith do? Can he hold down that defensive front 7 of the Giants as he did in Week 10? Well, let's go ahead and break this thing down here. First of all, let's start with the defensive side of the ball. We mentioned the front 7 of the Giants. We know about them: Jason Pierre-Paul, Justin Tuck, Matthias Kiwanuka. Incredible pass rush that they get going there and terrorizing quarterbacks. They bothered Aaron Rodgers all day last week during that win. They should be able to get after Alex Smith. Now, let's go over to the other side of the ball, the defense of the 49ers, which was one of the top ranked in the league going into the playoffs. They're still playing well. As we said, forced 5 turnovers last week. 5 turnovers. That's huge. The question is, will Eli Manning become rattled as the Saints did? Will the receivers be hanging on to the ball? Pierre Thomas gets knocked out at the goal line. Is that sort of thing going to be happening this week? How ferocious is that 49ers defense going to come, and how strong is that Giants offense going to come at them? Here's what I look at. What we've got with the Giants, let's take a look. There's victorious Eli Manning and Brandon Jacobs with his hands held high coming off the field at Lambeau just this past week. The Niners play some tough ball. Niners obviously play tough ball. They've gotten this far. They're 13-3, and a lot of people didn't believe in them. They've made believers as the season has gone on, and Jim Harbaugh has done a masterful job his first year coaching that team. Only one can move on. When I look at that one who should move on, I got to look at the New York Giants. The New York Giants have everything going for them right now. Eli Manning, the book of Eli, as I always say, there's going to be another chapter added to that. The running game is strong. Brandon Jacobs is healthy. Ahmad Bradshaw is healthy. So I think the combination of that, along with the wide receivers, with Victor Cruz, with Manningham, all those guys catching passes well, the running out of the backfield to keep the San Francisco defense honest, I think that will give Eli a chance to work the magic that he likes to work in these big games. And it's not going to be a blowout by any stretch of the imagination. I think Alex Smith is going to come to play. I think the Giants and the Niners are going to come to play hard in this game, but at the end of the day, we're going to wind up with a Super Bowl rematch from that fateful 2007 Super Bowl when the Niners stopped the New England Patriots in the pursuit of perfection. And I like the Giants to go on in this game. The New York Giants are going to face the New England Patriots in a Super Bowl rematch that's been a few years coming. So let's take a look at the also-rans. As I said with the Ravens, they're still in it, but it's going to be on Joe Flacco to get this thing done. I got a feeling, though, when all is said and done, Joe Flacco is going to be hanging out with this guy in the offseason. There's a look at Flacco. There's a look at Ryan. Two young quarterbacks came in the same year. Both of them, though, to me, they don't get it done when the moment is really huge. Matt Ryan is already out. Joe Flacco, I believe, is headed that way. So for both of them in this offseason, here's a shot of tequila for – that's a shot of Tila tequila. Here's the shot of tequila for them. I'm sure that once this game is over, you're going to have Flacco maybe giving Matt Ryan a call and thinking they can do a few tequila shots. So there you go, Matt Ryan and Joe Flacco in advance. Happy tequila for you in the off season. That's it for this edition of Inside Sports. I'm Charles E. Smith Jr. And remember, you can follow us on Twitter at The Inside Sports. So thanks for joining us today, and we'll be back next week, same time, same channel, right here on Ustream.tv. We're going to have our Super Bowl breakdown. And once again, remember, my picks for the Super Bowl. I'm predicting a Super Bowl rematch. The New England Patriots against the New York Giants in Super Bowl 46. Okay, everybody, thank you for joining us. I'm Charles E. Smith Jr. This has been a production of Inside Sports, and we will see you next week.